Good morning, everybody, and good evening to one of our speakers who's in Paris. Welcome to Tools of the Trade, Programming in a Pandemic. I'm Julie Fry. I am President and CEO of California Humanities. If this is the first time that you're joining us, let me just tell you that California Humanities is a statewide nonprofit organization, an independent nonprofit partner of the National Endowment for the Humanities. And over the past 45 years or so, we've been making grants and delivering public humanities programs throughout California. And we're very glad to have you join us here today. This is the second offering in our newest virtual series focused on humanities capacity building. Tools of the Trade, a practical series for humanities programmers, aims to support public humanities providers like you to recover and rebuild in the wake of the pandemic through a series of free online learning sessions over the coming year. We launched last fall with a session on virtual programming, as we were all discovering our best practices back then. And we hope you'll join us in the coming months as we grapple with other topics of interest in our field, such as working effectively with humanities advisors, raising the visibility of your work with media and opinion makers, reaching new and underserved audiences with effective outreach programming strategies, and creating inclusive experiences for people of all abilities. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Oliver Rosales. He is a professor of history at Bakersfield College, and he's also a California Humanities board member, and in fact is our incoming board chair. So he's going to introduce our presenters and facilitate the discussion. Thank you again for being here.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. I'm so excited about today's program to highlight, practical tools that we can use as humanities programmers to be effective during this pandemic. I can speak for myself. When the pandemic started, I was concluding a very large NEH grant at my community college, and the last year was just wiped out. And so it was a challenge to meet the needs of, of the populations that we served during that moment. And so I'm hoping to learn myself from this conversation, and again, to engage all of you with a Q&A with the panelists. So it's my pleasure to introduce Simon Hanokai. He is a theater maker, director, educator, and artistic director of Chimera Productions, a live arts company based in New York City and Paris. He has created work throughout the US, Middle East, Europe, and India. More information about his work can be found at www.chimeraproductions.com. Nancy Ryder is a branch manager too at Home Gardens Library in Corona, California. Her duties include overseeing the day-to-day operations of a small library. She loves to try new things to engage her patrons in order to keep her library relevant in her community, including a recent series of outdoor storytime programs. Nancy's public programs have received numerous grants, including a California Humanities Library Innovation Lab grant in 2020. Jake Schonecker is executive director of Youthbeat Oakland. Since 2010, Jake has built Youthbeat's education programs and curriculum, creating community partnerships and helping produce over 100 youth-led media projects in live screenings. He has led the organization as executive director since 2016. His documentary film work has appeared on the PBS NewsHour, the AFP, MSNBC, and other outlets. And finally, Ethan Von Tio is founder and executive director of Media Arts Center San Diego and San Diego Latino Film Festival. Since 1989, he has been working in media arts field programming, Latino film festivals for the University of California, Santa Cruz, Cine Acción in San Francisco, Cine Estudiantil at the University of California, San Diego, and the National Latino Communications Center in Los Angeles. Ethan has produced over 100 community-based events, or hundreds of community-based events, I should say, as well as curated countless film and education programs at festivals and or outdoor special events in 45 libraries across California and the Southwest. So please join me virtually in welcoming our panelists. So I believe we'll turn it over to Simon.
Well, I think it's my turn to jump in. Hi, folks. As Oliver said, my name is Simon Hanokai. I am the artistic director and co-founder of Chimera Productions. And for over 15 years, one of the elements of live performance that I've been interested in, the company that grew out of that, is the boundary between audience and performer, which is obviously something very, very complicated during the pandemic. And this interrogation is directly connected to Chimera's engagement with and implication of the audience in our work. It's also the reason why pretty much all of our work is immersive, participatory, or site-specific in one way or another. And that brings me to our Spaces project, which is an immersive storytelling experience. Originally, the piece was commissioned by the Harlem Arts Festival in New York, which knew about our work and the way we engage local audiences. And just for a little bit of context, the piece was created pretty much at the exact same time as Trump was being inaugurated as president of the US. And even in New York City, which is one of the most diverse cities in the world, we could feel this feeling of distrust, mistrust, and the question of, well, who belongs here? Who should be here? Who does the city belong to? Who belongs in the city? And we decided to build a piece around local stories that the residents of Harlem would share as part of our piece. And then we would work with local performers with who we would create a performance around the stories about local residents. And the performers were dancers, musicians, and multimedia artists, and a DJ. So we would use storytelling workshops to find local residents and then coach them, prepare them, support them to craft the story, to prepare their story. And because we really felt like it's easy to judge somebody when we just see the facade of somebody when we walk by them on the streets. But once you hear somebody's story, it's pretty hard to say, well, get out of my country, you don't belong here, get out of my city, you don't belong here, because we see the human being behind that story, behind the facade. So then after we finished the piece in New York, suddenly everybody said, you have to do this again. And we thought we were done, it was a commission, we were finished. And then soon after, we got this invitation from the French consulate in San Francisco to create a version in Oakland, California, which is actually where I had my artistic start, and Saint-Denis, France. Two cities completely different from each other, but are so linked because of their history, their story, the social justice movement in both cities, relationship to the police department in both cities, a lot of layers. So we were offered to present the piece in the large market hall in the Basilica of Saint-Denis, and the Basilica of Saint-Denis, which is what Notre Dame was based on when it was built. It's literally a place of that size. And in Oakland, we would do it in the City Hall of Oakland and Frankagawa Plaza. And now I actually like to show you a short 30-second teaser, if that's okay. Just to give you the sense of the piece. Oh, actually, I think I had to first click on a button that would let you hear it. Sorry, I'm going to do that again. There it is. Share sound.
Hacer it, se va. Sí, mi vida, siéntate ahí. Tú sabes de dicho al hecho a gran trecho. No te vas a marear acá en la trampa. Sé consciente de que lleva la rienda de tu ira.
Okay, that just to give you the sense of the piece. Obviously, it's a tiny little piece video, and we'll share a longer one in the chat if you're interested in seeing. And I just wanted to share some of that because we created this piece in June and July of this year. So right as the state of California began to open up in a little pause in the pandemic, and a bunch of things that we learned from this that we wanted to share with you today. So obviously we started with what most people start with, which is building an online component. We've modified a lot of our workshops to be online workshops to prepare the storytellers, to work with them and to connect with them. We also decided to create a whole online platform for the piece, which will launch next year, where we're collecting videos of our storytellers, giving them to artists who are creating an artistic response, making these video duets, split screen video duets. Then some more things that are very basic that some of you probably are very familiar with. We made sure that as many people on our team were vaccinated or they got tested regularly. And during the show and all preparatory events, all members of our team would wear masks unless they were at a safe distance from the audience. And all audience members are required to wear masks throughout the whole experience. In France, there's a whole, because we did the piece in France right after, there's a requirement by the government that they have to show a document that tells that they're vaccinated or been tested in the last 72 hours, which is an interesting component I think that some states in the United States are dealing with and some are not. We also, because an immersive space, a site-specific space, we were able to modify our seating to make people feel safe as much as we could. It wasn't always 100% successful, to be honest, because sometimes people were still too close to each other. And we also limited the audience to 80 people per evening, even though the spaces are these massive spaces. We also, as much as possible, eliminated the need for paper elements. So a lot of QR codes whenever possible, and online information whenever possible. In addition, because the work is site specific, using large open spaces is exciting right now. And I think that people also feel a little nervous to be in a theater space or a gallery space. So doing, trying to shift our work to places that are not traditional, that are open, outdoor, large, makes people feel safer. And we definitely saw that it's not just the physical safety, but it's the emotional safety in this moment that's super important. Because even if we feel like we are creating a safe space for people, somebody might not feel safe because of just all of the things around the pandemic, how it made them feel. And being not stuck in chairs because they're able to move freely in the space because an immersive piece helped people kind of create a distance that felt safe for them. So people could walk off to the side and stand at a little bit of safer distance. The other thing I wanted to share is that I won't go into it at this point, but there are a lot of other things that need to consider when creating immersive participatory work, but then it's too much to go into in this very short amount of time. And as I finish, I just want to reiterate that essential elements for spaces was the amplification of the role of art and storytelling in contribution to the making of the places we call home. And I feel like especially in the pandemic, which exacerbated these inequalities, that felt important. What does it mean to claim these public spaces that our relationship to our city, our relationship to our home? And we're already in conversation with other cities to bring this to other places. So, hopefully more lessons will be learned, and lessons that we learn from this version, we'll take it to our next version. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Nancy Ryder. I'm from the Home Gardens Library, and here's a little background of my program. I was the lucky cohort for the 2020 Library Innovation Lab from California Humanities. Every year, California Humanities brings together a group of programming librarians from across the state, providing support and resources as they create a special project for immigrants in their community. Our library is located in the unincorporated area of Riverside County. It is predominantly underserved Latinx immigrant community and not tech savvy. So my problem is, how do I share this wonderful program with my community during the pandemic when they don't do virtual? Since outside gathering was allowed, we use a basketball court, which is adjacent to our library. Next slide. Here is my Library Innovation Lab project, which took place last fall. My objective was to foster intergenerational dialogue among immigrants and promote greater empathy and understanding for their experience within the surrounding community of home gardens. The events were centered around reading and discussions of 3 children's books written by immigrant authors. The first event was based on author Villa Von Bender's book, Mommy Eats Fried Grasshoppers. The book was about the generational and cultural differences between mother and daughter. The author covered her inspiration for writing the book, which included traditional food and childhood games from the Lao culture. She showed how to make slippers, horses, and unicorns out of banana leaves. Each family received a goodie bag, which included fried grasshoppers to eat, a book, and other fun crafts. For our second event, we had Jolinda Curtin, a reading specialist who read and discussed Dreamers by Yuli Morales. Ms. Jolinda taught them how to do an interactive journal requiring both parents and child participation. Then Catherine Duncan, an artist, showed participants how to jazz up their journal with art. Each participant received a Dreamer's book, a handmade mummy bag, a journal kit, and a watering coloring kit. So oops, could you go back? Yes, thank you. These are 3 samples of the beautiful journals, as you can see. Okay, next, we have the final week. We have Dr. Jose Lalas, an educator and an immigrant from the Philippines, read and discussed Ugly Vegetables by Grace Lin. He talked about the importance of multiculturalism and feeling respected and welcome in our community. Everyone helped plant seeds in the library's raised bed. Could you go back a slide? Sorry, thank you. Everyone helped plant herb seeds in the library's raised bed and also received a book and seeds for their own garden. The ugly vegetables were graciously donated by local gardeners. They share how they cook the vegetables in their culture and got to take them home at the end of the event. Okay, a few things to consider when doing outside programs. First, how do we control the crowd? The key is to set a limit and have patrons RSVP. Okay, next, bring their own chairs and blankets. We provide butcher paper for those who didn't. So the next thing you want to consider is the traffic noise. Is it too loud at your event time? Is your sound system good enough to cancel the traffic noise? Do you have a power source? And if you don't, can you get to an extension cord? And do you have Wi-Fi outside? The weather elements are another factor you might consider. Make sure there is plenty of shade available if it is going to be a hot day. The other factor is the wind. Tape everything down just in case there's a gust of wind. One of the most important things about programming is to ask for help from your community. We needed ugly vegetables for our event, so I asked a local Facebook gardener group for help and was able to pick up the vegetables from their porches. Okay, next, pre-pack your giveaway goodies so that no one will linger in the line or cause traffic jams. Next, go over the agenda items in the giveaway goodie bags so that your participants know what to expect. Draw a map. Include stage, presenter area, sitting area, as much detail as you can, and share this with your team. Ask them for feedback. Try to identify all the possible problems ahead of time so that you can figure it out ahead of time. You want a dedicated person to read, collect, and count surveys and photograph and video. Last but not least, have fun. Thank you. Sorry, I jumped again.
All right, thanks, Nancy. I think I'm next. Hello, everyone. I'm Jake Schonecker from Youthbeat. I love seeing these other folks' presentations, so many overlaps and connections to be made across our work. So thanks to Cal Humanities for bringing us all together. I'm Jake Schonecker from Youthbeat. We're in Oakland, California, teaching Oakland teens to be filmmakers and media makers of the future, educating, empowering, and employing them along the way. And a big part of the empowering piece is students overcoming all these challenges throughout COVID-19. Like Simone was mentioning, it's been a learning experience from the beginning of adapting to virtual classes, and then now coming out of it, how are we going to come together, be safe, be emotionally safe and physically safe, and recapture some of the magic that we left behind in the early stage of the pandemic. And certainly one of the big empowering moments for our young filmmakers is seeing their work on the big screen, having the community come out, get to enjoy their films and cheer them on. And so we were able to pull off an outdoor screening here that I will share some pictures with you. And we were really excited to be able to partner with a local theater here in Oakland, the New Parkway Theater. They had a summer movie series where they were able to work with a local production company, had this big courtyard space that they were able to convert into kind of a summer movie house. So we were able to reserve it for a night, and a lot of the same principles that Nancy just went over very apply to this, keeping the crowd controlled, keeping them kind of, not too on top of each other. So we had these cones around the space to kind of dedicate where people were supposed to sit. Certainly BYO everything, so BYO chairs and blankets to sit on, as well as food and drink to kind of make sure everything kind of is separated. Here's kind of the reverse view here of what I'm talking about. And another important piece as folks come in, a lot of similarities, like I said, to Nancy's events, RSVP. So we had an Eventbrite set up where folks, we had to cap the limit of people that could show up. Luckily, we didn't quite hit our limit. And if folks showed up on the day of, we had someone at the front gate back here. We had, brought our little swag and had our red carpet. We always do the red carpet for our screenings, and so we were able to have a little photo booth with a red carpet out there, and checking in with folks, making sure everyone is on the same page. So as they walk through the door, making sure that everyone knows that we can eat in your pod, but we need to keep our masks on, similar to when you go to a restaurant or a movie theater now. Make sure you're wearing your mask when you're milling around, as well as just making sure that they know where to sit, to keep your distance, all that good, where the bathrooms are, all the essential ingredients. And then you can see this little rig here up at the front here. So, technical, let me go back here. This, one of the exciting things is now, if you have a projector and a screen and a little sound system, you can have a screening, have a movie gathering with your folks if you have the right space. So we were, I was kind of doing this myself here, playing the media and making sure that our young people also had a chance to come up after their films were screened and have the chance to share a little bit about themselves and their work, and we didn't have time for questions in this event, but you can see that these students were just glowing from the ability to share with their community, to be able to come together. And I have to say, for these teenagers, for all of us, it's been a hard time throughout the pandemic, but certainly seeing what these students had to go through, being isolated, taking away all the fun parts of high school, dances and the passing your friends in the hallway and all those things, and being able to see them come together at the end of this summer was a real treat and a delight, and a wonderful opportunity to share their work, which was supported by Cal Humanities. So thanks again to Cal Humanities for all the work you do, and thanks big time for bringing us together here today. So that's my my presentation.
My name is Ethan Von Tilo. I'm Executive Director and founder of the Media Arts Center San Diego and San Diego Latino Film Festival. The film festival will celebrate its 29th year this upcoming March 2022. And the pandemic was devastating for our organization in many ways. In one ways, it was devastating was earned income. We've relied so many years on 50% of our overall budget has been like movie ticket sales from the film festival or the movie theater. So the earned income of our organization just completely vanished within a month of the pandemic hitting in March 2020. So what was really interesting about this, it really forced us as an organization to kind of revisit what we've done for many, many years, and also kind of spotlighted what we've done for many years. And so what I'll talk about today is just kind of some of the things that we've done. And we've been doing placemaking and seeking unique venues for arts making and film exhibition programs and storytelling programs for since the beginning. And so kind of spotlighted the importance of getting back to our roots and what we've done for forever. So we're not relying on just on the inside of a movie theater, for example. So some of the things we've done as a nonprofit is one was called the Take Back the Alley initiative. This was behind an old auto parts store in the North Park area of San Diego, where we converted the alley into a space where we had paintings and murals, and we had brought community organizations in to help us plant, and community members, and we had special screenings out there. And so the Take Back the Alley initiative is some initiative that's been now taken to different neighborhoods, Logan Heights, City Heights here in San Diego. So again, the importance of opening unique spaces that can happen, whether it's a pandemic or not. Another placemaking initiative that we did was called Little Saigon Foundation. Took over an old retail shop that was closed in the City Heights area. It was vacant for many years. We took it over and turned it into a pop-up gallery. And then there was across the street, there was a vacant lot that's, is waiting for eventual construction. So we asked for the city and the developer to give us the space, where you see we hung up photos that were produced by youth. We screened videos that were produced by youth, and there were oral histories, and it was kind of an outside exhibition space. So organization has a long history of these kind of outdoor spaces. But more importantly, the organization also has a history of seeking partnerships across sectors. And I think that's something to kind of keep in mind here, that it's not just about the pandemic, but how do we be sustainable arts organizations for many years to come? And one way we've been sustainable over the years is these unique partnerships. So the Little Saigon Foundation was a partnership with the LISC San Diego and the El Cajon Business Improvement Association, and other economic development organizations that would support these type of initiatives. The other, most recently, are partnerships with commercial venues, such as there's a called Mission Valley Mall here. Many malls have been struggling also throughout the pandemic and need engagement activities, need to bring people into their malls. So many malls would be open, I'm sure would support your programs too. And so we were able to partner with the Mission Valley Mall on a couple different things this past year. One is we had our youth media and tech camps. So how wonderful it is to see kids running around the mall making movies. There was a fantastic summer program, and it will continue this year. Another partnership was we had with a local dance troupe here in San Diego. We produced a video of their dance performance. It was during the pandemic, so it was not in front of an audience, but we produced a video. And then they partnered with and we all partnered with the mall to present it in the mall and use these empty storefronts they're not currently being used. The other thing that we did as an organization is we just took our movies outside. And so thankfully, San Diego has one or two remaining drive-in movie theaters. We had a South Bay drive-in movie theater experience in March 2021, and we screened the beautiful film Zoot Suit, the classic film Zoot Suit. It was fantastic to see community members coming out in South Bay, lowriders. It was a great event. And then at the mall, we created a pop-up movie theater. Thankfully, there was the ability to do that in the vacant parking spaces. And again, people were safe in the cars. We had a red carpet. People came out to take photos, but they were wearing masks and stuff. And the other partnerships that we've always had for many years is with libraries. And so the pandemic kind of helped us kind of reconnect with the libraries that we had been working with for many years. And in particular, we worked with the City Heights Library this past summer and now on to the fall, where we use the space. They have a large theater space to screen the movies, and then the kids now have their classes there at the movie theater as well. But in general, I wanted this presentation to kind of talk about the importance of partnerships across sectors as an arts organization. How do you sustain yourself, and how do you work for many years to come, whether it's a pandemic or not? I think the importance of partnerships is key to all that we do. Also, the importance of using non-traditional spaces, whether it's a storefront, commercial venue, library. As an arts organization, we can bring our art, our stories, our films and videos, whatever we decide to do, to many different spaces. And so we don't have to rely on these kind of traditional houses to produce content. And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you to the panelists. We're going to shift toward the Q&A portion of the event today, and I'm going to take the lead on asking a couple of questions, but also encourage the audience members, if you have questions, to go ahead and throw them in the Q&A, and we will definitely moderate those in just a few minutes. But I'd like to lead with a question about budgeting, and this goes for all the panelists and whoever feels so moved to speak on it, please do. Can you speak to the nuts and bolts of managing a budget during a pandemic, and what kinds of changes do you anticipate as you plan, and how does this affect the process, perhaps, of writing proposals or managing a grant? Anybody like to lead on that?
The big one. You going for it, Ethan? You wanna?
Sure. Budgeting of these programs is a challenge for sure. Again, especially since for us as our arts organization, earned income was crucial. Again, like I said, it was over 50% of our earned income. So anytime we do a film festival or whatever it was, earned income was important. So thankfully, we have been receiving emergency grants to make these things possible. But again, I think this is where it's important to seek funding through cross sectors, different organizations, economic development corporations, libraries, workforce readiness. There's so much funding out there. It really is a lot of funding. It's just kind of seeking out that and connecting your arts programs to this. So we can screen a movie about health issues and they get funding from the California Endowment or the local. We just did a wonderful program about seniors with the county health services here. So seek non-traditional funding sources for your arts or storytelling programs. And then I think this will be mentioned by many of you, obviously taking a movie theater out into a parking lot or doing these outdoor things, there are added expenses that you need to add to your line items. I think Nancy kind of talked a little bit about that too, but there's definitely things to think about in your budget.
Yeah, I would just add we, similar to kind of the earned income aspect that Ethan was mentioning, and we do a lot of, we run a social enterprise video production company that is out there in the community shooting and editing videos for local clients, and all that business just evaporated during the, certainly the first year of the pandemic, and it's starting to certainly come back now, but it was a big drop for us. So it definitely required us to rethink some things. There were some, I think one of the silver linings here, though, is there have been some real community support. A lot of our funders, including Cal Humanities, have been so supportive and kind of very flexible and willing to work with us in terms of rethinking kind of how we're going to deliver the things we said we were going to deliver with grants and being able to deliver. So I found, the vast majority of our funders have been super accommodating and understanding and wanting to put the resources in the best place where it's needed for the students. I would just say as well that the PPP loan definitely helped in some of those emergency funds that we were able to get in there. That was huge. The big impact for us, though, was the kind of pandemic on top of the Great Resignation, which is ongoing and has been hitting us in terms of folks deciding to move to Nashville or to pursue their career as a filmmaker or as a musician. So we had multiple folks kind of moving on. And so one thing that we've been shifting in our planning is thinking about, for a long time, our model has been employing part-time teaching artists to work in classrooms with students. And more, it's just the part-time freelancer kind of life is becoming less and less possible, at least here in the Bay Area, where housing prices are so astronomically high. So we've kind of shifted to having fewer staff members, more full-time staff to really be able to offer folks the salaries and benefits and ability to offer our core programming. So that's been one kind of major shift in the way that we look at staffing and budgets.
Simone or Nancy, did you have any comments on budget?
For me, I had to add the PP, what do you call those? I had to think of how to package everything so that all the extra stuff that I didn't account for before the pandemic when I applied for the grant. And then so I needed bags. So for the goodie bags. So I asked a local supermarket, Stater Brothers, and they donated the bags for me. And then when whatever I needed, I just asked my community member. to donate. Like my local Walmart also donated a bunch of hand sanitizer, things like that. So that helped. And even actually patrons too. So I think if you ask your community, you will receive.
I just have one thing, and I also see maybe it connects to the question by Camille Hyatt about partnerships. To us, partnerships were huge, and the pandemic made a lot of our work postponed because the project that we ended up doing this July was supposed to actually happen about a year before. So a lot of the things, and we had 2 shows postponed, 3 residencies postponed. So that happened a lot to our company. So partnerships became key because with partnerships that we built, we were able to receive some free support, whether it was residency space, performance space, tech support, support around security, like Downtown Oakland Association was a huge support around help supporting with security as well as lighting and especially sound. So yeah, partnerships are actually huge for us, and that's really what saved us. And people that we've built relationships over the years, it really came through in this moment, and we're there to get our back. The other thing we discovered is that because our company is international, in this period that we became even less funding for international projects than before. It's just something that is actually really a shame. There's very little money in international collaboration, and during the pandemic, a lot of funds that already in the arts we have very little funds. Those funds got moved to other places or put on hold. So it became a tough period. So partnerships really saved us during this time.
Thank you for that. I have one more question before we shift to the audience Q&A. And, you know, all of you shared these great photographs, and there were people in the photographs. So I'm hoping that you could talk a little bit about your outreach process, you know, during the pandemic. How did you attract and continue to engage, you know, these diverse communities and get them to show up at your events?
You want me to go?
Oh yeah, this is for anybody who wants to chime in or who feels strongly about their photographs.
Okay. I did it by we went through Facebook. I shared we reach out because my due to my community who isn't tech savvy. So for that I went to the school, to the local school, and pass out flyers during their lunchtime. And I got permission from the principal to do that. And then reaching outside of my community by going through Facebook, because I just needed more audience. I wanted to share my program with them. And then so in that sense, I reach a broader, because of the pandemic, I reach a broader community members from outside other than home gardens. And that's why you see like a lot of diverse people. And so I just basically share, I had my staff share the post with their friends and my friends. And we just even did like homeowner association groups to share with them. So that's how I did it. And word of mouth.
Anybody else want to comment on their outreach strategies?
Well, definitely for the screening, the pictures that I showed, we, you know, a lot of Instagram, a lot of social media, yeah, Facebook for sure, and you know, leveraging the students. It really that celebration was really all about the students, and having them have their families there was very important. Them being able to invite folks from their schools. So we have very close partnerships with the schools, and reaching out that way was a big piece as well. And then cool partnerships as well. You know, common theme here, but for instance, we were able to the California Humanities funded project of Oakland was the documentary that was premiered that night and was this great achievement for the students. And we were able to, for instance, the Oakland Roots, which is a local soccer team here in the Oakland here, was showed it a little trailer on their Jumbotron at halftime of one of their games, and some cool partnerships like that where we were able to kind of get it out and kind of build the buzz. The other thing I want to mention, this is about, you know, in-person programming, but virtual events have been huge huge for us. And I mean, we're all here in a virtual event today. So obviously there's a lot of value to it, and it's really expanded our reach to where, we were able to have a virtual event in May. We're having another one I dropped in the chat here in a couple of weeks, where folks from all over the state, all over the country can tune in and get, learn more about these students, learn more about their work, see what they've got produced. And that's been great, just feeding in, because then it's like, okay, we have a spring virtual screening. Well, come at the end of the summer, we have an in-person screening to come and see it in person and do the premiere. So it all kind of feeds into each other. And I think we haven't quite cracked the hybrid virtual event nut yet. I saw there was a question about that as well. We haven't done that yet, but it's certainly something we're working towards. But having both events going on has been really great for us this year, building our audience.
Yeah, I can chime in also about audience a little bit, because the specific show spaces is built completely around stories of local residents, and it's built completely around inclusion of local artists. Word of mouth was incredible. We actually completely sold out our 6-day run of the show before even opening night. And then we had a waiting list of about 200 people per night. It was kind of incredible. And I think it's also right at the time, it was the first 2 weeks of July, so especially in California, folks were just so ready to get out of their house and be with each other and to share and be in connection with other people, that I feel like that also helped us, because people were just so hungry. And in France, we had the exact same outcome, because we did it here in France in September and October, and the show was completely sold out before opening night. And we had the same amount, 80 audience per night, because I do feel like folks are needing a space to connect and be with each other in person after this whole period of being online and separated from each other.
Ethan, is there anything you want to add?
Yeah, I'll just add with regards to marketing, I just would not, don't forget the traditional media as well. I think we're focused so much on the Instagram and Facebook, a lot on social media, which is fantastic. But you have all these wonderful TV, newsprint, and radio partners in your local area that are seeking opportunities to engage the community, of course, engage their, advertisers, but, they'll do radio promos for you, free advertisements. And so, yeah, continue to work with traditional media as well.
Yeah, a lot of people still watch traditional media. Absolutely. Thank you, Ethan. Well, we have, I think, a few questions in the Q&A, so I was going to turn it over to Kirsten to moderate that.
Great, thanks, Oliver. We do have a lot of questions in the Q&A, and I want to start with this one. Are you asking for proof of vaccine and/or negative tests at any of your events? And if so, how do you message this and how do you manage it?
I'll start. It kind of depends on the venue. We found there's, of course, different venues. So we just had a screening this past weekend where we would have done a proof of vaccination, but it's at a movie theater, a commercial movie theater, and so they're not asking for proof of vaccination. So in that case, we just follow the guidelines in terms of wearing masks and the kind of general guidelines. But so maybe it depends on the particular venue that you're working at, whether you do that or not.
Yeah, we did not for that, the event was showed, and we had a more recent event where we made it clear it was a private event in someone's home, and we made it clear we wanted vaccinations were required, but we made the decision, again, on the input of the venue, really leaning on them of what they want to do, and they didn't want to kind of police it or ask for I think if we were doing an indoor screening, we would definitely consider it more, but we felt more safe with masks outside in the summer. Felt safe.
Yeah, for us also, because in our Oakland event, we did not require vaccinations, but we required masks and created space for distance. In our event in Saint Denis, because in France, where the second event was, it's actually mandatory. There's a health pass that people have to have. So people are very much used to it. And it's a vaccination or a test within the last 72 hours that people have to show. So, and here and now people are pretty used to it. So yeah, we definitely communicated a lot in advance. People knew that was happening, because I would hate to surprise somebody last moment when they arrive and suddenly they have to do something that they did not know. So I would really create the language and and let people know in advance.
Great.
For me,
Oh, sorry, Nancy, please.
okay. For me, at the time last fall, we didn't require vaccinations, but we did require wearing masks. And the good thing was that everybody, all the families, when they came, they kind of just self-directed to have the 6 feet different distance. They kept to themselves. And the only time they took off their mask was when they're just sitting there and enjoying the event. So it worked out for me being outside, and they self-regulated themselves.
So relatedly, Courtney in the Q&A is wondering if anyone here could speak to the challenges of hosting a hybrid event and making that experience beneficial for all participants, virtual and physical. I know we touched on this. Has anyone done a hybrid event?
I have done a hybrid event, but not for like a humanity project. But it was really hard to be like I think you need at least 2 or 3 people doing the Zoom, and then you also have somebody out. It's really complicated trying to keep the audience engaged. So it was hard.
Yeah, we actually debated doing it for this upcoming December. Because we wanted to do a public screen. We wanted to engage that online audience we've been engaging all through the pandemic, and we want to have an in-person celebration with the students and families. And we were thinking about how we could pull that off in a hybrid format, and we made the decision that it will just run a lot smoother and reach both audiences better, separating it for also for our own sanity's sake, but mostly because you don't want to have to choose, right? You're either, if you're in person doing an event and then you're streaming, you have a camera and it's streaming, it's like the people online, you're not really talking to them necessarily, you're talking to the people in the audience. And if you're on a Zoom like we are today and you're streaming it to the in-person audience, it's not quite you're not really talking to them as much either. So that was the decision we made. But like I said earlier, I think we are looking at, experimenting with that in the future, but didn't decide to go through with it this time.
Yeah, I'll just add, we just did something very similar. This past Saturday, we had an in-person, it's called Age Friendly Film Festival, with these videos the youth produced about seniors in the neighborhood. And so we had the in-person event on Saturday, and then the virtual event will be December 8th. So completely different events. That said, is one of the, I guess, wonderful things about the film is that, and it could be of any art form, is you could have, artwork and films on demand. And so like during the film festival, we'll have in-person events throughout the week, but then there's always the online opportunity to, on demand, watch a video at any time that works for them, or a theater presentation at any time. And then the Q&As also can always be replayed as well, whether they're on YouTube or whatever as well. So there is this kind of on-demand option too. So I think you can have a hybrid event, just maybe not live at the same time, but just keep it kind of separate.
I mean, we did the simplest version of a hybrid, which is some Facebook Live elements in our live performances, but we kept it very simple. We did not do the full show. We ended up doing some sections of the show, and we communicated in advance saying parts of the show will be streamed on Facebook Live. Whoever's interested, feel free to join. And so we would just show segments of it. I've been teaching hybrid for the last semester at a university that I teach in France. And what I learned from it is that you need to invest in tech. If you want to do this right, you have to invest in tech. And unless you do, you should not do the hybrid event. And you really need to invest in people to really handle and work the space, because if not, one or the two groups is going to get lost and be forgotten. Which is kind of what Jake was saying earlier. I think it's really important to give 100% to both, and it's very hard. So for you to manage that, to take time to really invest in both groups is super important and very tricky.
Yeah, I can, from our production company work with, we've done several of these. I totally concur with that, because there's a couple times where it's been like, okay, they're just going to do it with a phone. Okay, we're going to have an in-person event, and we're going to do an Instagram live on the phone, and stream it out, or YouTube live. And it's it works. It works. It gets that thing out to your online audience. It's content that you can push out. But we've internally, for us, I'm more in line with what you said, Ethan, in terms of we'll make a highlight reel of the event, or we'll make it, we'll take out curated pieces of the event and package it more in a way for our online audience, is more the approach we've taken.
Great. Well, thanks everyone for weighing in on that. And thanks to the audience for all these great questions. Keep them coming. We've got another 10 minutes or so. Okay, we have a question from Camille in the chat, wondering if it has been especially difficult to form partnerships during the pandemic, and if anyone could talk a bit about maintaining partnerships that were formed pre-pandemic.
Anyone else want to? I feel like there's been a lot of partners stepping up during this time. I've found, especially since the reckoning of George Floyd and all the Black Lives Matter movement, and just kind of the pandemic on top of everything, we've seen a lot of corporate, business, local organizations kind of eager to give back, and as a mission-oriented organization wanting to help our students. So whether it's equipment donations, space utilization, sponsorships, cross promotions like the soccer game I mentioned earlier, there's been a lot of goodwill, kind of, I've seen in our community, at least, trying to help us.
Yeah, I would echo those comments. If anything, again, I think the pandemic has kind of helped us look at, again, the importance of partnerships and as a sustainable model for our organizations. That, I think pre-pandemic, myself included, you kind of get in your silo, you kind of get in your little world, and you're just producing all this stuff. And so the pandemic really opened things up again, I believe. And we actually started talking more to previous partners, and both in the the schools, the county office of education, the libraries. So it's been something really good for us to kind of force to open and have these dialogues. And there's a lot of, I'm sure in every neighbor area, there's a lot of good networking opportunities to reach cross sectors, and also to speak to other arts organizations or storytelling organizations.
Well, thanks, Camille, for that question. And we also wanted to highlight Lori's question in the chat. She's wondering, what options have theater makers? And I know none of you necessarily are directly theater makers, but maybe colleagues in the field or hybrid projects. What options have theater makers found most viable creating successful programming at this time?
I mean, though my company is not necessarily a theater company, my background and training is in theater, and all of our work is interdisciplinary performance. I just came out of a rehearsal and residency today from an immersive adaptation of The Cherry Orchard by Chekhov that we're creating. So it's very much a theater performance. So yeah, to me, it's the thing that I've mentioned earlier, that getting out of the closed, small theater spaces and to still create theater and live performance, not in small enclosed theater spaces, has been a huge solution for us. And which is also something that we've always made. So creating site-specific immersive pieces outside, especially California is such a beautiful space with pretty decent weather that you could move things outdoors. If you're in other places geographically, that's harder. Or to move into a much larger open space where people feel less nervous about being so close to each other. And also finding ways to diminish the number of audience members, I feel like has made people feel safer. I know in all of our recent live performances, which obviously impacts if you're depending on ticket sales, it impacts that element of your organization. We as a company, and I think it matches the other upcoming question, we stayed away from creating live theater online. We actually made a very early choice. Early in the pandemic, we had that long discussion, and I'm glad the rest of my team pushed me to get away from it and not do it, because I really, most of the time, though I've seen some exciting elements on live theater or live performance, usually I feel like just make a film out of it, or wait and do it live. And also for me, like, I love the live element. I love the live connection. To me, the whole point is that people in a room exchanging, and it doesn't feel right. So we've used that time to actually make a music video for the first time. It was the first time for me to experiment. We used that time to create an online component, which grew out of our live show, but is not a live show, but it's a recorded piece. So we've used that time to develop it, but not to create live online programming, just because I feel like it's always, not always, most of the time it ends up being a substitute for what you would have wanted to do, which is not what you wanted to do. And just for fun, I'll share the music video in the chat if you want.
I was just going to add, I think we're theater groups like the Old Globe here in San Diego and film presenters like such as ourselves, where we've been successful is, well, yeah, you can't replicate what's in a movie theater or in a theater experience. But I think where we've been successful and shifted is the educational component, is creating workshops. There's so many wonderful examples of online workshops and theater groups and film organizations such as ourselves, is kind of taking what we do into the Zoom format or to this online learning format, where I think that's where the organizations have been able to kind of survive. And so, yes, you can't get your earned income, your ticket sales, but you can get your educational grants or your programming grants to kind of help sustain you and do these educational programs and workshops online.
Kristen, can I share one example that I was really impressed with? Larry the Musical, which chronicles the story of life of Larry Leong, the Filipino-American labor leader. They did a live theatrical performance in New York and recorded it. And then I think they put it on YouTube Live, and it's getting all these communities excited about when they go on performance later on down the line. But they did that live performance online. It was just wonderful. And so if anybody's interested in Filipino-American history and inserting new people into that story, check out Larry the Musical. Really awesome.
Oh, that's great, Oliver. Thank you. I think, so we've got a few minutes here. I think what I'd like to do is ask Felicia to come in and give us all some information about the next events in this series. And then I believe our panelists have generously offered to stay on the line for about 10 more minutes, and we can keep taking your questions. I see a couple good ones I'd love to address.
Okay, sure. Thanks so much, Kristen. Yeah, first of all, just want to thank our wonderful panelists, Ethan, Jake, Nancy, and Simone, for being so generous, sharing their experiences and insights, and providing so much really actionable, concrete information. And thank you, Oliver, for your dedication, for facilitating this session and bringing your own deep knowledge of public humanities programming to this discussion. I also want to thank Julie Fry, our president, and our program staff for helping to plan and organize the session. And finally, special thanks to the crew, my wonderful co-producer, Kirsten Vega, and our communications and marketing team folks, Sherry Hill and Stephen Loskatoff. And thanks to all of you, our audience, for joining us today and for all your great questions. We hope that what's been shared in this session will be helpful to you in your work and possibly inspire you to think about applying for a California Humanities grant to support your work. If so, just a reminder that you can find information about our current grant-making programs, California Documentary Project, Humanities for All Quicken Project Grants, and Library Innovation Lab anytime on our website. Follow the links to, maybe Kristen, you could drop those in the chat to access the most current information, guidelines, FAQs, sample proposals, informational webinars, as well as contact information for each program officer. Today's program is part of a series, as Julie mentioned at the top, Tools of the Trade. We will be doing more of these next year. This series is supported by the National Endowment for the Humanities, which has provided American Rescue Plan funds to help rebuild public humanities programming capacity. Our next program will be titled Working with Humanities Advisors, Who, What, and Why, and that will be on February 17th. We'll be posting a registration link soon. If you haven't already done so, please sign up for our free monthly e-newsletter so that you'll get regular updates and announcements. And please be sure to give us your feedback about today's program via the survey link that you'll be sent shortly. We will also be posting a recording as soon as we can. So thanks for joining us today. Stay on the line if you want. Please keep in touch. Take care and stay safe, everybody. Thank you.